This video is going to touch on OpenEdge Explorer 11.7 in regards to use with OspreyHost 11.7.100. So for our initial launch, we're going to click on the Start menu. We're going to browse down to Progress, OpenEdge Explorer. It's going to launch OpenEdge Explorer in your default browser, which on this system happens to be Google Chrome. Our initial login on a default installation is going to be username admin, password admin, all lowercase, and then click login. This is going to bring up the screen where we set a new password. So I'll enter whatever new password I desire and then click submit. Note the auto start OpenEdge Explorer is checked because I want that to start each time the admin servers start, which is basically when a reboot is done or we start and stop services from a command line, such as doing a maintenance back. Now it tells me that it's ready to use, so I'm going to click on Start Using OpenEdge Explorer. And it's going to relaunch with all of my various resources. In order to better see everything, we're going to maximize this window. Much of the OpenEdge Explorer is the same as it was in prior versions. We have our resources down the left side. We have our start and stop buttons and our refresh button up at the top. The first thing you'll notice though, even though OspreyHost has been installed, you do not see any app servers. These are what we call classic app servers, and as of 11.7 we are no longer using those. We're using the PAS-OE, which is the Progress Application Server for OpenEdge. So you'll actually see our app server down here listed as OspreyHost PAS. We'll come back to that in a moment. Underneath databases, you'll see 4 entries. We have the Fathom Trend database, which is a default database, which we're not going to touch. Then we have our 3 OspreyHost databases, Host, Hislog, and the Smart database, which is part of our framework. These 3 should generally be running. We could drill down on those if desired, but they're fundamentally the same in the case of Host and Hislog as prior versions, and those 2 in the Smart database normally don't need to be touched other than to start and stop, which can either be done from the OpenEdge Explorer here or from a command line using the dbman command. We do want to focus a minute though on the Progress Application Server. So we're going to drill down on that by clicking on it. Okay, as you can see, we have the option to stop as a Windows service because, as we talked about during the installation video, this is installed both via the OpenEdge Explorer and as a Windows service, and as such can be started and stopped that way. Underneath here we have a few ABL applications. We have our default OspreyHost application, we have our OspreyHost backend application, and then we have the OspreyHost RF, which is our legacy wireless. Underneath web applications, you can see we have our same applications along with the OE manager. And under web app service, the same thing. You can see our REST services listed here as enabled and disabled as appropriate. If we go back to our ABL applications and drill down, for example, on OspreyHost, as that's our root application, you can see that we have a PAS-OE web app that is running. This happens to be the machine name and the port it's running on. We can in general drill down on that as well and see our various transports. In the case of our root web app, we have no transports enabled, which means it cannot be directly contacted. However, if we go back up a couple of screens and drill down, for example, on OspreyHost backend, and then further drill down on OspreyHost backend, you'll see that we have our REST transport and our apps over transport enabled. And then underneath those, for example, in the REST transport, we have our 2 services, OspreyHost REST service and MyHost service, which are used for other communication with the mobile apps, as well as the API interface. These were traditionally installed as Tomcat applications in version 11.4 and prior. However, they've been migrated to OE applications here. If again we go back to our OspreyHost PAS, which we can also do by clicking up here versus clicking the back arrow, and drill down on our OspreyHost RF, and again drill down on that. You can see in this case the only transport we have enabled is the web transport. And then if we wanted to configure that or etc., we could come down here and click on configuration. And then this is where we could tweak any configuration that needed to be done. This works the same for any of the transports for any of the applications. If we need to view the log files, we can view those directly via Windows Explorer, or we could choose to view them from in here in OpenEdge Explorer. This is, for example, the Catalina log file. This is fundamentally the same as browsing to, as it says, see OpenEdge work, OspreyHost PAS logs, and then the current Catalina log. If we need to go into configuration, again, we simply click on configuration. And then the server configuration comes up. This is where we can manage Tomcat, etc. If we were to actually drill down to an individual application, such as our OspreyHost backend, we also have configurations here. So if for some reason we need to tweak our pro path or our startup parameters or any of our session procedures, that would be done here. So going back to our resources, and again, as we talked about earlier, to start or stop these things, we can simply click on a given one and click stop or click start. Refresh will refresh the page, etc. So that's a basic summary of OpenEdge Explorer 11.7 as it relates to OspreyHost. Thank you for your time.